everybody, my name is Shibby, and I'm an esports colorcaster and grandmaster player in Marvel Rivals. And today, we are going to be reacting to some interesting Marvel Rivals community takes. We've got takes from Twitter, Reddit, and even my own personal TikTok comment section. Before we get into this, I do want to preface this by saying do not send any hate towards anyone featured in this video. The Marvel Rivals community is one of the largest growing communities in the gaming space at the moment. There are a ton of different opinions on a ton of different topics. I just personally think it's really interesting to see where everybody's at and getting a pulse on all these different topics. At the end of the day, these are all jokes and banter. It's all to facilitate discussion. So with that being said, I don't want to keep you guys waiting any longer, so let's get into it. One of the first things we're going to look at is this take from Reddit, and the question comes, or to discussion, is why are there 4 out of the 8 support ultimates are just a transcendence ability? I'm going to tell you why I think there are 4 transcendence abilities. It's the fact that in Diamond Plus games, most of the time, Luna Snow, Cloak and Dagger, Invisible Woman, 2 of those 3, or even 2 out of these 4 characters are banned. And so you need these kinds of similar ultimates to counteract how OP some of the DPS ultimates can be, right? Things like Psylocke ultimate, these team wipe ultimates. The thing that I think a lot of support players don't understand is that your uniqueness doesn't always come from your ultimate. It comes from the fact that most of the time, support kits are fairly overloaded. Cloak and Dagger being one of the most overloaded kits in the game because they are essentially 2 different characters. The fact that you have a debuff, a healing buff, you have auto aim on both of your characters. You have the ability to make your team invincible, right? Or intangible with Cloak. You look at someone like Invisible Woman, 2 different like soft CC or hard CC abilities, right? You have a slow, you've got a pull and a push that can do environmental kills. You've got a shield that heals quite a bit, right? You've got a ton of utility in your kit. I think maybe the only character you can kind of say that doesn't have like a ton of utility or overloaded in their kit is Luna Snow, but Luna Snow also comes with the best ultimate in the game by far, right? 12 seconds of virtual invulnerability. You know, it can be counteracted with stuff like damage boost plus a specific ultimate, but she also has a freeze that lasts a very long time. She has the ability to heal multiple targets through each other and do damage. And she also has an ability that allows her to place a like ward or a snowflake onto somebody and they get healed while you're doing other things. Like you essentially can heal somebody else and get free healing on the other person. Like their kits are very overloaded. I don't have to talk about Mantis because Mantis has a ton of different things. Damage boost, sleep, self-damage boost, heal, all that stuff. Like all these kits, very, very overloaded. And they're all super unique in my mind. So yeah, their ultimates are going to be somewhat similar. Because of how many team wipe style ultimates there are in the game. Think Eye of Agamotto. I talked about Psylocke ult, Spider-Man ult, like a bunch of different things, right? But also the fact that your uniqueness comes from your inherent basic kits and the fact that, you need these characters simply because you can ban 2 or 3 of these out in any given match, Diamond Plus. And I think that was a purposeful choice that the devs made here. So this take actually comes from the Marvel Rivals Twitter community. I think they're a really good community. I love the discussions that happen there most of the time. I think it's very lively. There's a lot of different viewpoints and stuff like that. It doesn't really get too toxic. Now, there are some funny stuff like this where somebody says, this game literally has the worst competitive experience I've ever had in a game. I'm going to stop you right there. I can name 5 games off the top of my head that have considerably worse competitive experiences. League of Legends, Apex Legends, Valorant, I would say Overwatch now. I would even argue Rainbow Six Siege has a pretty terrible competitive experience. A lot of those games suffer from, more toxic communities in my mind. I think with League of Legends specifically, the fact that in that game, you can have someone purposefully in and ruin the game completely, that can happen in every other game I talked about. But the fact that it's harder to come back from that and it's harder to carry, like if somebody decides in League of Legends, I'm going to throw the game, they can put your team in such a hole that it's impossible to climb out of. In Valorant, if you have one person like purposely throwing or maybe playing bad on purpose, you can still have those moments where either yourself or another teammate just locks in and drops like a 30 or 40 bomb. Much more difficult in League of Legends. Obviously, the same thing can happen, what I talked about with Valorant, with stuff like Rainbow Six and even Apex Legends. I think that competitive experience, I'll talk like the ranked experience, can be really tough because of the matchmaking and how many issues they have with matchmaking. But I would argue right now, Rivals, for the most part, is a pretty solid competitive experience. I think they've got it down to where like you do feel rewarded when you play well. Obviously, you can have those games where, people will troll or people will pick stuff that are unconventional or they'll just like play really badly. But this game unironically rewards you for just playing more games and winning more than losing, or even just like, winning slightly more or losing slightly less than winning, right? You can have like a 48% win rate. And the thing is, for the most part, you will gain more than you lose. So I think the competitive experience is pretty solid. I actually think the community is pretty good right now. How it will happen as the game goes on is a different story. Arguably, the game is only 2 months old, where you look at like League of Legends, all these other games, they've had tons of time to develop. But I think the competitive experience, I think there are a lot worse competitive experiences right now based off of my experience with the games I talked about. So this take, or this 2-for-1 double banger take, comes from the Marvel Rivals Twitter community. And I think it's really interesting because the first tweet is, y'all please go play quick play or at least the practice range before you take new characters to ranked. That's very valid, super reasonable. Then Javion goes on and says, he quotes retweets it, says, what's y'all's opinion on this? Me personally, I don't feel comfortable playing a character in comp until I hit Lord on them. Now, okay, we'll dissect the first part. I generally tend to agree. Do go to quick play and do go to practice range before you take new characters to ranked. What I'm not going to do is flame like a Vanguard player for playing the thing the first time in ranked. Like, he's a Vanguard player. He knows relatively what he needs to do. What I will get mad at is if like the Grandmaster support player or like the Diamond support player randomly decides to pick up Bucky, has 0 quick play, 0 practice range or whatever, and he's like, no, I'm gonna play Bucky. And I'm like, I look at your tracker, or I look at your profile, it's like you have 0 games of Bucky, or you have like less than 10 minutes of Bucky. Now, the second part of this, the Lord part, yeah, I think if that's your MO, if you want to feel like you think Lord is mastery of the character, I don't tend to believe that. I do think to get Lord, you do have to put a lot of time into it. And generally, more time equals better understanding of the character. But I think the 1-to-1 of like, oh, this guy's Lord on it, that must mean they're really good. Lord just rewards playtime, realistically. And the argument is that, oh, because they have more playtime, therefore they are just fundamentally better at the character, or will just have a better understanding of the character. Sure, I tend to agree with that. I don't think you need to wait till Lord. I think if you have like an hour or two on the character, you play enough quick play, you play them and rank, like that kind of stuff. Lord is a bit excessive, but I don't hate this mentality. Like, I would be much more comfortable on my team with someone picking a character that they're Lord on than they're not Lord on. I just think intrinsically. So kind of wild. I don't know how many teammates it is. Maybe more teammates should be doing this. So this is another take that comes from the Marvel Rivals subreddit. And I'll just say this. I think the subreddit right now is doing a really good job of like culling hate and stuff like that. I think they have a lot of cool discussions on there. It can be pretty productive at times. We'll see as the community grows and what the mods end up doing. But this take comes from the Marvel Rivals subreddit community. And it's really funny. It's almost innocent in some aspect. Vanguard is the most fun role, in my opinion. Why does nobody play it? And then he goes on to talk about like why he thinks it's fun and blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you right now why nobody wants to play Vanguard. It's the fact that it is arguably one of the most flamed roles in the game. And what I mean by that is the fact that you can be slightly outplayed as a Vanguard, and most of the time your supports and your DPS will blame you as a Vanguard player, right? It's very easy for them to say, oh, you didn't create space, you're getting out-tanked, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, a duelist can look good by inflating their damage numbers, right? By shooting the tank, doing this kind of stuff. A support can look good by inflating their healing numbers. But a tank doesn't really have a metric where they can be like, oh, I played really, really well. Even that metric of damaged block isn't necessarily that good or that important, because damaged block, I mean, like you can block like 40, 50,000 damage, but if you're not creating space, if you're not doing like that kind of stuff, if they're like seeing that you're playing worse or you have less kills or you have more deaths, stuff like that, they're just going to automatically look at that box score. Vanguard is so reliant on healers. Vanguard is so reliant on DPS getting their picks and landing their shots and getting those final hits. That's why nobody plays Vanguard. It's the most thankless role in the game. And even when you do good, it doesn't actually look as impressive as maybe when a support plays well, when they get really good ultimates off and stuff like that, or when a DPS obviously plays well. Obviously, DPS is the most flashiest role. It's the most, apparent when you see, oh, this DPS is popping off, right? Big box score or final hit, stuff like that. Yeah, tank man, I feel like tank mains get punished the most. It's thankless. Nobody wants to play it. Even when you do play well, sometimes the game just feels impossible to win. Another 2-for-1 banger from the Marvel Rivals Twitter community. And I think it's really cool because first off, you have Necros talking about Rocket Raccoon and essentially slandering Rocket Raccoon. And then you've got this individual quote retweeting it, essentially saying like, hey, Rocket Raccoon's ultimate is terrible when you use it on its own at the wrong time. Yeah, of course. Obviously, right? He's like, obviously. It's not like almost every other ult works like that. It isn't something exclusive to Rocket. So I will say I did listen to the clip that Necros talks about. I get what he's saying. His overall thing is that if you're healing as Rocket Raccoon, and let's say you have like a Luna Snow on your team, a Cloak and Dagger, these kind of ultimates, and maybe your Luna Snow doesn't have ult ready, if you're just like sitting there as Rocket Raccoon spamming heal so you can get your ultimate, you are effectively taking away ult charge from a much more impactful ultimate, right? I don't think it's crazy to say that Luna Snow ultimate, Invisible Woman ultimate, Cloak and Dagger, Mantis, these ultimates have a much more immediate impact in the game when they're popped, and it's much more easy to see their value than something like a Rocket ultimate. The issue is, and with this clip as well, what he talks about is that Rockets rarely communicate when their ultimate is going to be like used. They just kind of build it and then they throw it down and they set it and forget it. I tend to agree with that. I think Rocket Raccoon ultimate is very good when combined with DPS ultimates like Namor's, who can one-shot through, Luna Snow ultimate and stuff like that. Moon Knight as well. If you combo Rocket Raccoon with a lot of the DPS ultimates, those two ultimates can actually one-shot through a lot of the more defensive ultimates we see. And the cool thing is now that we're in this new patch 1.5, Rocket Raccoon actually didn't get any ultimate charge changes, right? So you can effectively have an even trade of like, I'm going to build these two ultimates to counter the Luna Snow ultimate that has been nerfed, the Mantis ultimate that has been slightly nerfed, the Invisible Woman that has been nerfed. You know what I mean? Like their ult charges have been nerfed. So you can kind of keep on pace in theory with like every two Rocket ultimates, there's going to be one defensive ultimate. But I get what Necros is saying. Also, this person, you have a correct point, but I think you kind of misunderstood what Necros meant when he's like, yeah, you have to coordinate at a much higher level to get more value out of the Rocket ultimate when Luna Snow, Invisible Woman, Cloak and Dagger all have very immediate value and have more immediate value in a team fight. But I think if Rocket players start really coordinating with some of their DPS and we start seeing more of that, the narrative will change. Like, I think Rocket is very overhated at the moment. Do I think he can be subpar in a lot of situations? Sure. But there's also a lot of good situations where you can pick him with Punisher and Winter Soldier. He can be very oppressive with that infinite ammo. And also, if used correctly, if timed correctly, which is on the Rocket player, hey, let's use our ultimates together to win this team fight. Yeah, the narrative can change. I think he's overhated, but I think Necros also gets like criminally misunderstood because I think a lot of people just like to hate on this guy. So the last reaction that we're going to get is from my own personal TikTok. This is from the comments and some of my more popular TikToks. And I released this video, this specific one, the characters that need to be buffed in this next mid-season patch. I talk about like a bunch of different characters here, and it's really funny because the comment section was like arguing like whether they should be buffed or not, stuff like that. So I'm going to quickly go through it. The characters, I think I only had like 4 here. Mr. Fantastic needed buffs. I very much think he maybe still needs some after this new patch. I talked about Black Widow needing buffs. I talked about Scarlet Witch needing a buff, as well as Captain America. The hilarious thing is that every single one of these characters received a buff in the mid-season patch 1.5. Mr. Fantastic got some cool buffs. Black Widow got some buffs. I mean, Scarlet Witch even got a minor buff to her ultimate. Captain America got some buffs. And it's so funny now looking at it because I released this in January, pretty much 1 month prior to the mid-season patch. And it's so funny just like watching like this, like dog shit takes, Jacob. All right, sick. Mr. Fantastic is a menace in the right hands. That argument I don't really agree with because any character in the right hands can be a menace. Reed has 0 reason to be buffed. He can outdamage every Vanguard and outlive every duelist. Yeah, I agree. But he doesn't do what a Vanguard does, and he doesn't really do what a duelist does, right? Like he is in that sweet spot, which is not actually that good for him. That's why they gave him more utility. That's why they directly buffed his damage on his ultimate, by the way, guys. If you think Mr. Fantastic isn't good enough, you need to go into training mode with him because he's very good. Very good survivability, good combos. Anything Mr. Fantastic does, there's a Vanguard that tanks better or a DPS that does more damage. It just kind of goes to show you where the community is at with some of these characters and when it comes to underpowered characters. I think a lot of the time you have a very big section of the community that is at levels where these characters are oppressive or can be oppressive. And what sticks out to them is like when the Mr. Fantastic player in gold, platinum, or whatever kind of just shits on them. And they're like, oh man, this character is so good. Or like Scarlet Witch is a perfect example. Scarlet Witch absolutely dominates like platinum and below. But once you hit diamond plus, the character's win rate drops, the character's pick rate drops, and there's only a handful of players that are really, really good with that character. That's just kind of the effect you'll have, right? With some of these more easier characters to play, or some of these characters that come out that feel very underpowered in higher elos, but they can dominate and will dominate in some of those lower elos. But this was just really funny because I had made this 1 month prior, and pretty much, I guess the Marvel Rivals devs agree with me. Maybe they watched this, who knows? But yeah, we tend to share the same agreement. Like, yeah, these characters do need some changes, some more than others. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'm going to tell you something you've heard a million times before. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on my latest uploads. I try and respond to every single comment in my video because I genuinely do appreciate everyone that takes the time out of their busy schedules to leave one, and I love interacting with my community. If you want to catch more longer form content, I stream over on Twitch about 3 to 4 times a week, where you'll get unedited versions of these videos, as well as we talk about roster moves, patch changes, as well as gameplay over there. If you care about the short form side, I post pretty frequently on YouTube Shorts and TikTok, where you'll get more condensed version of this content, as well as highlights from my stream, amongst other things. I'm also on Twitter, and all of this will be in the description box below, as well as a pop-up that will form on the right side where you can catch me on all the different platforms. I genuinely appreciate everyone that stops by on this channel and watches all my videos, and I hope to see you in the next one.